All right, my lover. It's time
on.
for the Noel's Bard Witchcraft podcast, Chris.
You disgust me.
Why? What have I done now?
Fucking farmer boy intro.
Farmer boy intro. Hey, don't diss the accent. That's not very nice. That's very rude.
Yeah, but the rest of them can't see you with your backwards fucking cap on.
Well, they can now.
With your rude boy.
They can visualize. I know some people suck at visualizing, but they can visualize, innit?
Yeah, ruining your rude boy look that you're going for at the moment.
I think I can do the rude boy look. No? Just raise an eyebrow like, oh dear. What look do I do? Never mind the podcast. Let's get some fashion advice from Chris. You used to work in fashion and that.
There's nothing wrong with the way in which you look. My point is, people forget that a look is very much that. You can see that kind of what someone looks like from across the street. Right. It's only when they open their mouth that it provides context as to who they actually are.
Right.
So the look very much says, I'm trying to find a nice way to put this. Says,
why break a habit of a lifetime?
The look currently says, I'm struggling with middle life crises in my 30s, trying to gain some of my youth back with me backwards cap.
I don't get it. Why?
With me backwards cap and my slightly hipster beard occurring.
Yeah, I do need to get rid of the beard.
You know, whereas a couple of weeks ago, the backwards cap just looked like a backwards cap and really suited you in your youthful looking face. Whereas you've kind of the context has changed with the facial hair. Does that make sense?
My sideburns is as long as my beard, so it needs to go, does it?
So yes, or you need to lose the cap. One or the other. You got to choose one. You can't have them both ways.
Okay, I've learned something. Right. So, Mr. Chris, I'll ask the question that I've been asking everyone at the gym, right? And that is, it's an age-old question. And when I say age-old, it's been around for a little while, as long as trains have been around, right? So you've got this train going down a track, and it's going to fork. There's this little lever, right? You can decide which direction the train's going to go in. On the left-hand track, there's a bunch of kids playing on the railway lines. They're going to get us smushed, right? On the right-hand track, it's one of your brothers tied to the track. You can pick which one, but I need you to tell me which direction do you make the train go in. Do you kill one person that you know that's part of your family, or do you smush the children, which there's multiple?
You know this is an unfair conversation because you know what my answer will be.
What is it?
I will always
kill a podcast.
I will always kill a whole set of strangers over somebody I like.
Oh, interesting. So I've changed my stance on this question, not because of what other people have said, but because I've looked deep within myself. Okay. With all this solar workings and such.
Okay.
Right?
Did it require lube?
No, it didn't require any lube or no KY jelly was used.
You haven't gone deep enough then, Liam. You need to go deeper.
Gone deep enough. I will go deeper soon. Okay. I've got to ease in, Chris. I've got to ease into this morality and ethics and stuff.
Lie back and think of England.
It's a pain in the ass. Right. Okay. So just the tip, right? Just the tip of the iceberg that is this question, deep question. So I used to say, and I used to think that I would just leave however the current track is set up. So as if I'm not there, I'm not a piece on the board. And if it goes for one or it goes for the other, that's not up to me. That is, fate has already been kind of sealed to a certain extent. So that used to be my take on it, right? Because I used to think, well, I don't want to be responsible for the death of some, Chris's brother. And I also don't want to be responsible for the death of a bunch of children. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, according to Spock, which I'm not too sure, because I don't know if any of these little blighters that are playing on the tracks, whether they deserve to be, taught a lesson and smushed. One or two of them might make it away before the train comes, and they'll live to tell the tale. They might get some next level PTSD or something like that, but I don't know. I thought remove myself from the situation, then I don't have to choose, right? So that used to be my approach. Nowadays I've changed, right? And I go for, I'm gonna smush the people I don't know, Chris. So I'm a little bit more like what you've said, right? So it's like, okay, Chris's brother is on the track, tied up for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he's pissed you off. Not sure which brother it is. We'll go for Dan, right? So Dan's tied up on the track, and then there's a bunch of kids playing. I think I'm going to go for the people that I know, I've decided, unless it's a person or people that I specifically don't like, in which case I'll take a chance on the unknown, Chris, because they are unknown. Okay. There might be a bunch of them, but they're all a bunch of unknowns.
Okay.
So
what you're basically saying is, unless you really know them, you're going to flip a coin.
No, I'm not flipping a coin. I'm going for the person that I know to save. I'm saving the person that I know every time, unless it's someone I dislike. I know them, but I dislike. It used to be that I just walk away and let the tracks choose in terms of what they're pre-configured. But nowadays, I've changed my stance on it.
Okay. So does that mean maybe you have met enough people that you like enough to think, oh, I might actually want to save them? Whereas I think previously, maybe people didn't matter. Maybe there's a bug in that binary code of yours.
Maybe I've just got more data, because now I'm thinking kind of like most humans don't really amount to much and are pretty fucking boring and lead very mundane, boring lives. So at the end of the day, if they get smushed, the chances of them being something important or this lifetime being a real big deal, which is, we know, even if it is, it will still work out further down the line, all right, isn't it? It's great. Multi-dimensional universes that we live in. It doesn't really fucking matter, Chris. I think my appreciation for human life is somewhat on the volume control gone down. I think that's what it is. So I'm thinking I'm picking my favorites now at this point, whereas before I kind of put humans to a certain extent up a little bit as to they need to be protective, protect the herd, let one lone sheep die to protect the herd. Now I'm thinking, well, the herd's fucking sheep at the end of the day. I might as well go for one of the sheep that's a pet. No?
Okay.
Sounds like I'm kind of near enough on the same page as you, though. Maybe you've been rubbing off on me.
Maybe they are.
Were you the strange man that was stood behind? Never mind. So, situational morality. This was it a recommendation for a topic, or was it just a statement? I can't remember.
It might have just been a statement, and we said, "Oh, that might be a good opportunity for a podcast." No, I don't know. I don't know how much she suggested this. So,
was it from an upstanding, moral and ethical person that this came from?
Maybe I'm not sure.
Maybe. Is it situational, Chris? Does it depend?
It's situational.
On what day of the week it is?
It depends what mood is in.
Okay.
No, I think it's an interesting one, particularly with topics that have been discussed in Witchcraft Live and stuff over the last few weeks or so. And we talk about it a lot, which is, we talk about moral and ethics a lot, and that you kind of need to own your own. You can't focus on what the crowd are saying, because ultimately you need to take responsibility for your actions. and that means you need to take responsibility for your ethics or your or how moral you feel you should be. So the concept of situational morality for me, I think, is very much apt for how I behave personally, which is, in that situation, I would like to say that I say the greater good outweighs. But if you're going to strap somebody I actually like, and there's a risk of them dying, I know I'm going to have to live with that person not being here, and I clearly enjoy their presence.
Hence why they're still alive.
Hence why they're still alive. Yeah, exactly.
Unless you were the person that strapped them to the train track, in which case I don't know what you'd do in that case. If you were the person that strapped someone to the train track, would you pull the lever, or would you just take it a 50-50 shot and say,
then
look,
I might let the
it's
school
like
bus,
Russian roulette.
I might let the school bus live. But ultimately, in that very kind of either or situation, me and you will always try and take a third option, because that's the sort of people we are. But
but Chris, it goes against the laws of physics for the crane to smush the children, and then you levitate it onto the other track so it smushes the other person too. Maybe we unjig one of the carriages so one goes one way and the other goes down the other track. Then you can kill them all, can't you? But normally, don't you resort to lightning or shit for that? Traditionally. The old traditional witches' carriage. Okay, so situational morality then. Situational morality. I tend to think that if we as humans, because we as the humans, witches and such, if we're really, really angry or really upset, then we do tend to make decisions not necessarily with a clear head. So when it comes to spell casting that you're planning, maybe if you rush into it, then you might go a little bit, you might over egg the pudding a little bit potentially. Or another thing that's come up quite a lot recently is accidental magic and smiting people kind of accidentally because they've kind of pissed you off and that energy has to go somewhere. So rather than just turning into cancer like a normal mundane, they send it off somewhere. Should people feel bad about situational morality according to your morals? Or do you think they shouldn't? Should they work on it?
I think ultimately for me, people just need to own their decisions. I think what I struggle with more so than someone changing their morality stance on different things is someone that reverts to a higher power. I think what more annoys me would be the Abrahamics who would kind of go, no, it's Jesus or God's plan. Like that. I think that kind of resolving yourself of your part for me is far more problematic than
you must hate Buddhists.
You making a decision. Well, look, I don't hate Buddhists. I don't see that the idea of trying to live through life without creating any ripples as the predominant path for enlightenment tricky. I think I would rather that person take responsibility for the impact they do have. I think that is a better way of considering enlightenment, whether or not I believe in such a thing. Is that kind of, I want to live ethically. So in that sense, I would like to cause as least damage as possible. But that suggests that I'm not okay, that I'm not wanting to cause damage. I'm of the feeling that in order for something to grow, some kind of discomfort is probably going to be caused. I think when they oversimplify the Native American traditions, and talk about this not cutting Mother Earth. You know, in all that, when they oversimplify to those sorts of things, they start to think, well, how possible is that? Because that suggests that you wouldn't intervene in changing the way in which, because if you are observing animals and you take a lot of what you're talking about from animism, suggests that you are ignoring the behaviours of, say, the beaver. So where the beaver is quite happy to build a dam in the middle of somewhere in order to redirect water, and in a lot of ways we are reliant on them making those choices for the healthy ecosystem that is the river. Animals like the beaver exist for that reason. So in order for you to exist in a way where you think I must leave no imprint, has two outlying impacts, which is, one, you ignore that nature itself does it on purpose in order for evolution to happen and for ecosystems to survive. You know, an ecosystem doesn't work if you take away the apex predator quite frequently, because it doesn't keep the
wicked population down
into population check. Do you know what I mean? So kind of like there is a natural order to things. If you take nature as the footprint for ethics, then you're saying everything in moderation, and you're considering the impact in which you make, which is not the same as Buddhism, where there is an over emphasis on minimal impact, and minimal impact in a way that will cause a deficit for you. So that's not a healthy don't cause impact. That is a you don't need to live with any of this. Is the one end of that, and then there was a second end, but I've rambled my way into a forgetting.
So has your ethical guidelines or anything like that ever changed? Were you ever like very fixed on what you consider to be moral and right and ethical and that, or not? Have you always been somewhat depends on my mood at the time type thing?
I think my morality has always been focused on responsibility. So if you're willing to take the responsibility, like, you know, it's the same reason I can't stand vegans. You know, ultimately, if I want to eat meat, I have that kind of feeling of I can do that as long as I'm willing to take the responsibility of it. So to me, if it was a choice of we're getting rid of all supermarkets and the only way that you can eat meat is if you're going to kill it yourself, I would be more than happy to kill it myself. I would probably live in a farm.
Would you do all the skinning part as well? I'm a bit squeamish when it comes to that. I don't want to have to do that.
All of it. I'll butcher it myself. All good. Kill, butcher,
it's so tedious,
and serve.
Chris. When it don't come in like a cellophane plastic wrapper or from the butchers in like a paper bag, it gets very tedious. You've got to go out, you've got to kill it, you've got to come back, pluck out all the fur, skin it, all that. I just haven't got time for that. We ain't hunter-gatherers anymore. We have podcasts and shit to do these days.
Yeah. But my point is the moral quandary that's always provided to you is, would you do all of that? And my answer has always been yes, because I feel like, well, if I'm willing to, if I need to be able to be willing to put the work into it. Like if you're telling me the only way that I can keep things warm is by going and digging up coal, and that is the only way, then I suggest I suppose I'm probably going to put myself in that position, or I'm going to hopefully be able to pay somebody enough to do it for me.
Well, that's what we do these days, though, isn't it?
You know, so kind of like, you know, so for me, my focus has always been on kind of responsibility. Is, am I willing to get my hands dirty? And I think as I've got older, and there is less mess involved with killing people, I've probably got less and less bothered about it.
Oh. What is the what kill count did you get when you stopped caring about human lives and such thing? Is it easier after the first one, or they say the first is the most difficult?
I think you know, flippancy aside, what I'm more kind of saying is there is, I think as the perspective changes, I think that's the part of situational morality people don't take into consideration. Is, you know, in that there are situations where you deem it okay, and for a lot of people that is, well, if it's to preserve life is normally most people's go-to, isn't it? Certain things are okay if it is in order to preserve life. Now, to me, I'm less likely to apply that rule, because I think the pursuit of just preserving life is where we probably getting some of our dirtiest messes, personally.
Yes. Which brings me on to my next point, because when it comes to morality and ethics and that, people often talk and think about, as we have before when we've discussed such things, talk about the negative. I'm interested today in the positive. So going out of your way to go and do good things and such, which would be considered moral or ethical or that kind of thing. So where does that come from? What decisions do you make from that? What's your guiding compass for that? Because you don't do charity, do you? Not charities as in like sponsoring. So if British Art Foundation or Adopt a fucking Koala or something like that came knocking on your door, you'd say, no, I'm sorry, I already do stuff. So what about that? Like, some people get an overwhelming sense of feeling guilt when they see like children with flies on their face on the comic relief TV show. They get a bit of comedy, which they laugh at, and then all of a sudden there's some kid with a fly in his face and it makes you feel sad.
Tricky. Yes, I do charity work, but for me, charity work is about doing. I don't consider charity work to be about necessarily money raising. I think it's a necessary part of it, but that's not normally the bit I get involved in. I'm more used to getting involved in the doing part. So I think I'm more likely to go over and you know, dig a new pipeline for water than I am to send £5 a month to a charity knowing full well the money's not going there.
But how often dig pipelines, though?
I don't, but I know people who do.
But that doesn't mean that you do. You're saying, okay, I don't need to give to charity because I'm friends with someone that does a lot more charity than me.
Liam, that's
and
not
they're
what
balancing me out like my carbon footprint.
That's not what I just said. That's not what I just said at all.
Okay.
What I just said was, I think charity to doing what you do is what matters. I don't think writing a check for somebody else is what matters. I think if everybody was doing something for somebody else, the world would be a better place.
Right. So do you think that it is like the whole carbon neutral kind of thing, whereas you try to do more nice things for the community and for humanity in the world and that, versus nasty things? Because there's this idea that, okay, someone that spends their entire life, you know, trying to support a charity and such like that, but's very poor, they don't do anywhere near as much as Jeff Bezos does with one check They say, well, Jeff Bezos just wrote a check for £1 billion, and this one lady spent her entire lifetime working in Africa or something like that, when Jeff in one weekend just wrote a check because he felt like it. But then how do you weigh that up? You know, who did more? Because you could think, well, Jeff makes this business called Amazon, which has nothing to do with the jungle, by the way.
No, just cutting it down.
Has like slaves that he pays like below minimum wage and such like that. And is that taking away? I mean, how does this thing work with regards to positivity and good stuff and that? And because I kind of feel that from a charity perspective, I normally work now as, if there's something that's going on in front of my face and I can do something about it, I weigh that up then. But if it's something that I know nothing about, like these people that say, oh, I'm going to build a water well or something far away, I don't really trust that. I've been stung by that sort of thing in the past. I don't really feel that needs to be done. I think that, you know, there's a lot of politics and stuff like that comes in that I can't even begin to understand. Whereas, okay, that person that can't afford to feed themselves or switch their heating on or something like that, I've gone out of my way to help those people because I see them and I see the result of the work. I think they would make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'm still waiting for that feeling.
Yeah, but yours is out of the fact that you feel obligated.
Yeah, I know it's entirely out of the fact that I feel obligated and I don't know the difference between right and wrong. So I tend to overdo the right bit. So that I know, it's like contingency, isn't it? Like when you've got a budget and such like that, you just overdo that so I can use up those points when they accrue. Definitely. I really do struggle between what you're supposed to do as a good person, quote unquote, versus what normal people do. Because I find that normal people don't really do a lot of good shit. Like I always find myself being the one that helps the old biddy or feeds this person or does this or does that for other people. And they always say the same thing, which is no one else has ever helped me in this way or no one else does that. And that this person watched me struggle, that person watched me struggle. And I kind of think, this is interesting. How do I dial this back? But they look at you quite shocked when you say that. I say, what's the minimum amount of charity you would expect from a normal person so I can recalibrate? You can't say stuff like that. You get a reputation, Chris.
No.
But I am trying to probe you for this.
It's a very robot thing to do. But yeah, I think people should do what makes them happy, I guess. I enjoy the charity work that I do. I get something out of it on the basis that I know, or at least I hope, that thing is going to survive for longer. But that's mainly because my focus is always in the arts and history, and is a case of going, well, I want to preserve this knowledge so that it's available in the future. Now, to me, I think that is charity because I don't gain from it.
No, but it's a drive that you have.
Yeah, it's an innate drive I have that is, I want to preserve what I can. I am one of these that believes charity begins at home. If you're not supporting the people that you see every day, then I don't see why you would feel any better writing a check to Africa that you never which you never see the impact of. Whereas you going and walking a dog for an old deer that can't get out is twofold. It makes you feel good because you're getting exercise, and it has a twofold goodness on the fact that old biddy is supported and that dog has a healthier life and hopefully lives longer to support that old biddy. Whereas I think, particularly in a post-COVID world, where the entire world turns selfish overnight and starts warring over toilet paper, really just blew my mind that people could be that selfish.
Well, I know. I mean, paper that you just wipe your bum with. I mean, there's better things to fight about.
But yeah, we'll see. But no, my feelings about it all.
Well, that's it for the regular edition of the No Holds Bar Witchcraft podcast. And Chris might be spilling some secrets